Hi, welcome back to my homestead. My name is Emily, and this is week 2 of the Three Rivers Challenge, a pantry challenge. And my organizational activity this week is going to be organizing our chest freezers. We have 2 chest freezers, this big one here, and then a smaller one. The smaller one has been unplugged since we got here, and I cleaned it out earlier today, and we're going to reorganize the 2 freezers so I can find things more easily. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the big freezer first. As you can see, it's very disorganized. It's hard to find what I need without digging around. And these 2 baskets belong in the small freezer, and they fit very well in there, not in here. I'm not sure how big this freezer is, as we bought it secondhand, but the small freezer is a 7.3 cubic foot, I believe, and it is ready to have things put in it. So I'm going to grab a pair of gloves so I don't freeze my hands, and we're going to start organizing. Has Swiss chard, radish tops, and kale from the garden this past year. This one's got radish top soup, oyster soup, some pumpkin puree, I think. Yep, just some pumpkin. It's not soup. Now I'm going to start taking out all the small bags and sticking them in a cooler nearby. This will help me get to all of the larger things underneath so that I know how I want to organize the rest of the freezers. I started out thinking I would put the fruits and vegetables in the small freezer, and then decided to also put ground beef in the small freezer as well. And now I'm putting everything back in the freezer, and everything is organized. So let's take a look. Inside the freezer we have a frozen turkey, a rabbit, a corned beef brisket, got steakums and some kielbasa, and under the brisket is some ground pork. There's a ham that we're going to save for Easter, and a bunch of chicken feet left over from our chicken processing. This is an old rooster, which I really need to use up probably during this challenge. I've been afraid to cook it because the last one turned out like shoe leather. And these are our pasture-raised chickens from last spring. We still have quite a few of them, so we probably are not going to raise any this year. And then a big bag of ice. Now we'll take a look in the small freezer. In the baskets we have some different soups and some pumpkin puree. That was from a pumpkin that my sister grew and gave to me. I have some coleslaw dressing that I made up into ice cubes, some kale, Swiss chard, and radish tops from the last couple years in the garden, and ground beef. We also have chicken pot pie filling, homemade chicken broth, some frozen fruits, and frozen yellow crookneck and patty pan squash from last year's garden. Now let's look at some dinners we've made this week. First, we'll start out with chicken breasts that were left from the chicken I made into fried chicken last week. This is one of the chickens you saw in the freezer that we raised, and I'm cutting the breast off of the bones. Come up with 2 chicken breasts and 2 chicken tenders. We have the back of the chicken and all of those bones I cut off, and I'm going to stick that in the freezer for stock, as well as the chicken tenders. So now I'm breading the chicken in an egg wash and then Parmesan cheese with some herbs, covering it with sauce and baking it in the oven. I usually put mozzarella cheese on top of this towards the end of the baking, but we don't have any of that at the moment. So we're serving it with spaghetti and some steamed broccoli. And this was actually enough for us to eat for 2 nights for dinner. Now we're going to have breakfast for dinner. I've got 2 potatoes shredded up with some spices and mix that up for some hash browns. I always squeeze out the excess liquid from the potatoes before adding it into the cast iron skillet with oil on the bottom, and then spread it out as thinly as possible with a spatula. And then sometimes they turn out almost perfect like this, and other times they don't. That was the only perfect one in the batch. Happened to be the one I recorded. Now we're going to scramble up some farm fresh eggs. Our chickens started laying again recently, so we're getting nice, beautiful eggs from them. And then we're just going to whip them up so we can cook them in the same pan as the hash browns when the hash browns are all finished. We're also going to have some pancakes for dinner. We have a bag of pre-made frozen pancakes in the freezer that the kids haven't really been eating recently, so we're going to pop those in the oven, and they look beautiful. We're going to serve those, the scrambled eggs, like to keep a lid on top to keep them warm until we eat, and the hash browns served with some ketchup and some fresh orange slices. Another night this week, I made a chicken and broccoli casserole. I started out with making some rice and then defrosting some cream of chicken soup that I had made previously and had saved in the freezer for an occasion just as this. Then I added a jar of home canned chicken and a bag of frozen broccoli. Now I started mixing all of this up, chopping up the chicken into smaller pieces, and then I realized I had forgotten to add some of the seasonings. So I added some salt and some garlic powder. There is onion in the cream of chicken soup, so we don't need to add onion powder. Get this all mixed up, and once it's baked to the broccoli being tender, I will chop the broccoli up as well to spread it out a little more in the casserole. Top it with cheddar cheese, and half of this will be going in the freezer for a future meal. And finally this week we have Tijuana dip made with ground beef, onions, garlic, tomato sauce, kidney beans, olives, various spices, and topped with cheddar cheese. Served with corn tortilla chips and corn-free tortilla chips because I try to avoid corn in my diet. My body just doesn't really like it. This meal is one of my children's favorite and most requested meals. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.